Hi everyone, it's Joanne Fedler here of SpoonFed Writing Tips, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the editing process. This is a really hard one for writers, and it doesn't matter how long you've been writing or how many books you've got out there. Editing always brings up for each of us anxieties about having somebody else look at our writing and decide that it's good enough, not good enough. So it brings up our anxieties about self-worth, because some of us are quite over-identified with our writing as an indication of our own self-worth. And it also brings up our anxieties about letting go of things. But there is actually nothing more helpful to us than having our writing go through an editing process. You know, when you're working on something, you're so deeply inside your own writing that it's sometimes really hard to be able to step out of the writing and to see it from the reader's perspective. We always have to write for ourselves, but we always have to write towards a reader. And some of us do it better than others, and sometimes we are on it better than at other times. But when we have an editor, and it should always be eventually somebody who is not us, somebody else, somebody else's fresh eyes, somebody who hasn't been part of the creation of the work itself, but somebody who can look at the text and say, does this make sense? Does this sentence follow from that sentence? Does this idea naturally follow from the previous idea? What about this? What about that? Is that the best word? Is this necessary? And an editor will help us keep the text moving like a shark through the water and aimed towards the reader. So an editor's eye is going to be incredibly helpful for us in refining the text and getting it ready for the reader. The other thing is that sometimes we think that if we let something go, that it's gone, that somehow it brings up the sense of loss. I worked so hard to create that sentence. I worked so hard for that metaphor or that image, and now they want to cut it out. There's a red pen through it. No way. Sometimes we just have to step back from it. I always think that it's good when you get an editorial suggestion, especially if it annoys you, if you really get the shits when you see something has been suggested to be deleted, to actually step away from the text and go and think about it for a while, sleep on it, have a think about it, and come back fresh. If sometimes an editorial suggestion is not the right one. An editor's suggestions are just that. They are suggestions, and we are the writers, so we should always have final say about whether something should stay or go. And editing, the editorial suggestions actually give us a chance to look at the text afresh. It really does allow us to sort of stand away from the text a little bit and to cast a different kind of eye over the text, which is always really, really useful. And then once you've stepped away from it and you've had a look and you've decided this really can go, or you know what, I'm really, really attached to this and I'm going to fight for it, that's also fine. But it's always good to at least consider the editorial suggestion without our egos getting in the way, because I think a lot of times, certainly for me, when I get editorial feedback, there's this little ego part of me that's going, that is my work, don't touch my stuff, get away from my stuff. And I don't want to give anything up. But our mistake is believing that giving up actually diminishes our text. Oftentimes, excising excess words creates space in the text. It actually allows the text to breathe a little bit, and it allows the reader's imagination and interpretation to come in, instead of our text being stuffed full of language or ideas or too many metaphors or lengthy sentences. So I actually love the editing process. I've come to love the editing process. It's taken me a long time, but I certainly have had the opportunity to work with wonderful editors. And I just suggest that you always show your work to someone and get some editorial feedback before you send it out there, and that you always send it to somebody who you trust and whose suggestions you will respect, even if you don't finally agree with them. So good luck with the editing process. It's something that we have to learn to love eventually, and definitely, definitely always does improve our writing.